Welcome everyone to the Voices of a Black Man. This is Saturday, so that means it's time for our roundtable discussion. We're bringing back speakers from this week to sit down all together and take a deep dive into some of the differences and commonalities that they discussed earlier this week. I'm happy to bring along Linwood Long Sr., Ryan Ray, Terrence Staten, and Terrence Leffridge. Thank you, gentlemen, for being a part of the roundtable, giving me some more of your time and being a part of the roundtable. For your viewers out there, if you haven't watched the week, go back and get the links for the week. Voicesofablackman.com is where you can go and find them under speakers. Each speaker's video, you click on their profile and takes you straight to the video. I'm excited to see all of these gentlemen today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. And again, thank you so much for inviting me back on your platform. I am so excited to share the space with these brilliant young men. I'm looking forward to this table talk, and let's get it going.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Mr. Ryan, how are you?
Phenomenal, Sherelle. Hope you are. And again, just delighted to be on this platform with these incredible young men as well as yourself. So thank you for, again, your leadership and vision to allow us to use our voice this morning.
Absolutely. Terrence Leffridge, how are you doing, sir? I think we got you on mute.
All right, there I am. Unstoppable. It's a great day. Even better just to be back with these phenomenal men covering all parts of the nation, all age groups, talking about being a voice for the Black man. Appreciate you having me here.
Wonderful. And Mr. Linwood.
Again, thank you for the honor and privilege to be a part of this dialogue, especially with these incredible young men. I feel honored and privileged and feel a little younger being around these.
Yeah.
That's what they say. You want to stay young, always find some young people.
Hey.
Absolutely.
They'll keep you young, even if it's hard. Absolutely. So again, I'm honored and humbled to have you all here for a second time, but all together, I'm excited about this conversation that we're going to have today, and I want to kind of just dive right in with a question. The format for the viewers is very simple. I'm going to throw out some questions. They're going to have some discussions about it, and I'm gonna let them go. I'm gonna let you guys go as much as you want to go. So the first question that I have for you, this week was an amazing week, and we talked about all kinds of things. The first one that I have for you is I want to go back to the question of what was it in your life? What was it in your life that you did as a Black man, being Black and a man? You can't help that. You didn't put that on every day. It's who you are. But as a Black man, what are some accomplishments that you had that people looked at you differently because you were a Black man? Not because, and their thought was, you did that, and it was more around because you were a Black man more so than just a human with disability. Not everybody at once.
I know that's a deep question, right? And
Requires a little thought.
Yeah, and so when you sort of do the deep dive in that, I think there's probably several scenarios, because I take the premises that anytime you're a trailblazer in anything outside of your own community, you sort of amaze people as to how you get into the space that you're in. For example, when I became chief of staff for Congresswoman Eva Clayton, first Black elected to Congress in North Carolina in 100 years. And when I would show up to represent her, and folks would, sort of look back and say, are you at the right meeting? Are you sure? And so, and you can recall, and probably all of us can call into remembrance times when we were sort of looked at as not belonging. I'm gonna use this word, not belonging in the space that you operate in. So that's my first swing at the bed on that.
Yeah,
And I'd have to agree with what Linwood said. And I don't think there's one specific thing. I think there is a culmination. I mean, for me, going from an all Black high school into a predominantly white college and seeing as many other Blacks on campus as I did see, when in our state it was out of 13% of the Black population in Illinois, there was over 30% of Blacks attending that state college. So that was amazing to me, in effect. And just being someone who, because of the color of your skin and because of the demographic that you came from, not typically being thought of being able to attend a prestigious college like that, I think that was one of those barriers that we broke early and often, even though the paradigm had it that was something that we couldn't do. So always breaking those barriers that people didn't think you could break in little ways as well as big ways. That's what, I've attempted to do throughout my life. But there's no one thing that I could key in on that was major. I did have a conversation with my aunt just the other day, and it's amazing. And I don't know if you other guys have dealt with this either, but it's amazing when you talk to people on the phone and they've never seen you, and then they create this impression of you. And I always had that growing up, well, you sound like a white guy. And then when they would meet me in person and see that I'm as dark as I am, they were just amazed by that, as if it was the way I spoke was connected to one race versus another. So always being able to catch people off guard with that and dispel that myth that because of the color of your skin, you're supposed to talk a certain way or sound a certain way, and to blow people's minds. That's what I always love to be able to do and to be able to shine the light on.
Yeah, I'd say for myself the same. It hasn't been, I can't think of just one instance, but just several instances. I told the story of, kind of the life trauma experience that I had. It kind of sent me in another direction to just become a learner. And I just began to see myself, I began to find myself in rooms, be it a boardroom, be it other trainings, be it other business opportunities where I was the only, and a lot of times the youngest for a while. That doesn't fit anymore, but certainly the only Black in a lot of the rooms that I stepped into. And again, as leadership has continued to ensue, probably just the latest one, taking over at Jobs for Life. I wasn't a great student in college, and because I realized that was the information I wanted to learn. And when I had the opportunity to go to Harvard, all my family and friends were blown away because they were like, "You're going to where? You didn't even NC. You just got out of NC State. How you going to do it over to Harvard?" So, just little things like that. The opportunities where it's kind of just, taking people aback, I think, just based on, historical context.
Yeah, I would say for me, my mantra has been making an impact in the community. Making an impact one community at a time. And I would say about 6 years ago, when I was in banking, we were able to partner with a local high school here in Durham. And we were able to put a simulated version of a bank, which was an extension of a business academy, inside the public school system. That's huge because, finances was never taught to us in school. It was trial and error. You made blunders when it came to your finances. We all have stories about when we had money, we were doing it big, we were just splurging, we didn't have a blueprint to financial success. So it was extremely important for me to be a part of a solution that we can give our youngsters at 14, 15 years old to get it embedded in their spirits now. Hey, you guys really need to understand your credit. You need to understand your finances and how it can work for you, how it can work against you. And I'm glad that we were able to put that institution in the school system, a predominantly Black school system. You know, state of art, everything. It was like a real bank inside of a high school. And these kids ran it. You know, they learn how to be tailors. They learn how to be financial advisors. They learn how to be credit specialists. And just to see that project unfold and knowing that you had a hand in that. And as I mentioned before, it made all the way to CNN. You know, so they covered this story. And it was like, wow. And when they found out who Terrence Staten was, I felt that like, oh, you did that? Oh, okay. Wow. But who are you?
You somebody.
Right. You know, so you just got people coming together collectively and say, hey, enough is enough. We need to change the paradigm. We need to make sure that the future generations understands finances and things of that nature. So that is the one big impact that I can think of right away that I was a part of. And I'm just so happy that it worked. It's successful. It's a story that Hillside High School, which is right here in Durham, North Carolina, they're still riding high on that program. And it's just a great addition to their Business Academy program.
Good stuff.
Yeah, that is good stuff. Very, very good stuff. All of you guys. You know, so when I hear you say that, I understand. I totally understand what you're saying is the fact that I'm just walking into a room. And usually into a room where there's not a lot of people that look like me, that's enough. The fact that I walk outside every day is enough on some occasions. So I want to talk about sitting at tables and creating your own tables. Is it, and I posed this question last week, and I'd like to get you guys' opinion on it as well. You guys, everyone here has had an opportunity to sit at tables, just in what you do on an everyday basis, the leaders that you are, in community and the society. You've sat at a lot of tables that maybe a lot of people hadn't had entrance into. But in a lot of ways, you all have also created your own tables. Can you guys discuss and just talk about sitting at tables, being invited and sitting at tables that a lot of people don't get opportunities to, and the importance of creating your own tables when you can't get to the table that's already created?
That's a great question. And I'm going to speak on in the reverse. Creating your own table opens the doors for you to get invited to other tables. And so let me just talk about I have two internet TV shows, one called The Unstoppable Story Show and the other called Talking Small Business with Terrence. I created those shows because I got tired of sending out my information, trying to get on somebody else's platform to talk about accountability, to talk about this ideal of if you focus more on what you're able to do and less on what's stopping you, then you'll be unstoppable. I got tired of trying to pitch myself to other people. And then someone way smarter than me that had more followings on their show said, well, you know what? Why are you knocking on other people's doors when you could create your own door for someone else to knock on? And the light bulb came on. And I was like, wow, you know, that is absolutely true. And that when my other great friend on this platform, Terrence, talked about what he was able to do and how he was able to create this big platform, you talk about when you create a platform, you open the door for people to now come to you and see what it is that you're doing. And as a result of you having people come to see you, those people start talking to other people. And then you find yourself being offered the opportunity to go to those other tables that you couldn't get through when you were out there trying to pitch yourself to these people. We don't learn that in school. They didn't teach me that in my high school, nor did they teach me financial literacy in my high school. Those things I learned from the school of hard knocks, from going out there and just trying things and throwing that proverbial spaghetti against the wall and see what would stick. But when you get out there and when you put yourself out there, and you let people know what it is that you have to offer, then people are going to be more willing to come to you, and then you have to spend less time trying to come to them. So that would be Well, I would say create your own table, and then you'll be invited to other people's table.
I hear you, and I think that's fantastic. But let me do a little twist, and sort of go this direction, and certainly agree with what you're saying. But I think one of the problems at the table for many has been, what do you do at the table while you're at the table, right? And that is, do you use the space created for you sitting at the table to advance those things that you are passionate about, those things that you know can impact others than a label for your name that I'm on this board, I'm in this position. I always ask the question, what are you doing at the table, right? So that's one take. The other thing is, wherever I am positioned, right, how do I use that to create my own table? It may not be visible. It may not be as impactful with great explosion and visibility, but I always use this mantra: if I can help just one person, if I can plant a seed that will reap a harvest later down the road, then I am creating a table for others as a model to follow. So I think one is, what do you do at the table? And two, wherever you are and whatever you are passionate about, use that to create your table.
Good stuff. Yeah, I've had the privilege of sitting at, a few tables, as I mentioned before, a lot of times the only one. And, I began to recognize that theme. And I think somebody said, if I heard them correctly, that if you're not sitting at the table, you're on the menu. And so I began to identify that, I have an opportunity to influence what's on the menu, and to what Pastor Long just said. And then how do you leverage those unique opportunities, a lot of times short-term opportunities, to have a voice. And I think those are opportunities to get out your comfort zone. Those are your opportunities to speak truth to power. Those are opportunities to say, look, you invited me, which means you pretty much asked me to speak my truth. And, I got one bullet in the chamber, I'm gonna shoot it. And, if I'm welcome back, I'm welcome back. If not, let the chips fall where they may. And then I also agree with Terrence and, again, Pastor Long, that, those are opportunities. Yeah. How do you now expand that reach? How do you take that knowledge, that information, those relationships, and create your own table? And again, been very fortunate to be able to do that as well. And for me, it's always with others in mind. How can we create opportunities to expand that reach to get others at the table? How do we create those pathways so the others have an opportunity to participate as well?
Yeah, I echo pretty much what everybody else is saying. Me being a community development officer for the agency that I work with, I'm oftentimes sitting at different tables, whether it's for workforce development, whether it's for reentry programs, whether it's for business development. And a lot of these conversations, a lot of narratives are the same. What can we do to impact these different communities? How can we find some solvency? What are some areas where we can improve on? And what I've learned is, and to kind of take away from what Ryan just said, as far as, if you're not sitting at the meeting, you're on the menu. That's exactly right. Because what I've learned is that, you have to keep a pulse of what's going on around you. You have to understand your people. You have to understand how you play a role in bringing these solutions. And so I'm always looking at ways to bring solutions. Here again, my mantra is impact. And so if I can't find impact, then I always ask myself that question, well, am I really needed? Am I really doing a good job? Or am I just giving lip service? So I'm a guy that's not about a whole lot of lip service. I'm about action. And so, yeah, just been sitting at different kinds of tables. I see a lot, and I do get that feeling, especially when I'm in the banking meetings, when we talk about CRA and different things of that nature. You do kind of feel like you're the only, black or brown face in the room, and you have to really represent yourself well. You have to articulate well. You have to let them know from the beginning, who you are and what you bring to the table. And so you always feel like you're in that competition. But I also have to, remind myself, it's not about the competition, it's about the impact. And so I just echo what everyone else is saying. So I'm in total alignment with that.
And I just want to piggyback. I think one thing that we always have to recognize is that leaders are servants to the people that they're leading. And that's why they call it servant leadership. So anytime I walk into a room as a proposed or perceived leader, I'm trying to think, well, how can I be of service to the people that I'm representing when I walk in that room? Like Terrence said, you want to make an impact. I don't want to just make an impression. I want to leave an impact, because if I leave something in that room, then that's going to be leading to the invitation to come back to that room, because we deposited something into that room of value that makes it worthwhile to bring us back. And that's ultimately what we want to do in whatever movement that we're in. We want to keep being invited back so that we can continue to have additional opportunities to make an impact on that room, but then also to get us access to other rooms and other tables where we can continue to make that impact. And that's when our voice becomes magnified, and that's when we really are putting ourselves in a position to make a difference. But it's all about being a servant leader when you walk into those rooms so that you can be invited to other rooms.
Yeah, let me just say one word. I don't want to belabor this point. Just think, I think many, maybe many is not the right category to categorize it right, but this notion of servant leaders, I don't think that mindset come with many who take on leadership, right? They really think instead of serving, they are to be served, right?
Right. Yeah.
And they began to forget, but for somebody else labor, they wouldn't be where they are, and they are so happy to be at the table and don't realize they're being served at the table and being served up and being used, that they bring not one thing back to the community.
Yeah.
And so the true epitome of a servant leader is the point that I take what I get from the meeting and then use it to bring somebody else along, use that information to feed it into my community where they can be able to use it to do things that I possibly could not do.
Yeah.
I love the term. I just like to see us use it more.
Yeah, and like Terrence said, everything, you can't be about the lip service. You got to be about the action. And they say that if you ever want to see a sign of a good leader, look at the people up under them. Look at the people that are working with them. And that's how you can determine whether or not that person is serving or if that person is looking to be served. And we have so many examples in our world right now of leaders that are looking to be served versus leaders that are truly out there serving the community that they represent.
Ryan, did you have something?
No, I was just going to echo great points. I don't want to throw anybody out, but I'm over here like, yes, preach. I don't want to interfere with anybody.
All this positive energy out there.
Yes, sir.
So you talk about being servant leaders, and you're talking about if you're going to be at the table, be at the table, right? Mr. Lew, I heard you say something, and Ryan said that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu, and I heard you go a step further and say you could be at the table and be what's being served, not just on the menu, but being what's on the platter at the table. If you're not taking your chance at the table to impact the room, number one, and then taking that back to community, number two. Is that what I hear you saying?
That was one of them uh-huhs from me.
Exactly. I agree with that. And sometimes we forget why we are at the table and don't utilize being at the table to help the broader issues that we deal with in our community.
Have you guys experienced, because you sit in a place, well, before I even go there, let me ask you, what does it mean to be Black? When you hear that just in society, oh, he's acting Black, or Terrence talked about it earlier, Lethbridge talked about it earlier, being on the phone, and then they meet them and say, "Oh my gosh, you sound white." What does it mean to be Black?
I think it depends on who you're asking the question to. So when you ask the question to me, what does it mean to be Black? I think it means to be everything I was created to be. And I was created Black, but that wasn't all I was created to be. I was created to be Terrence Lefteridge, who just happens to be Black. Unfortunately, in the society that we live in, people tend to look at one thing instead of everything, whether it's your color, whether it's your sex, whether it's your sexual identity, whether it's your political affiliation. We hone in on one thing, and then we create a whole personification of that person based upon that one thing. So let's go with your question. What does it mean to be Black? Well, if you are not Black, then maybe your perception is what it means to be Black is they're automatically going to be below the social economic level of every other race. Maybe that's your perception. Maybe your perception is if they are Black and they are female, well, they're automatically going to be angry. Maybe if they're Black and they're male, they're automatically going to be a threat. So what it is to be Black is the same question as what it is to be vegan, what it is to be vegetarian. It all depends on the person's perception who's asking the question. So my response to that is when you ask me that question, I ask you, why is that important for you to know the answer? And then that's where the conversation comes in.
Very well, very well. I go ahead, Mr. Long. I see you.
Yeah, I guess he make good points. I sort of cut through the chase and try to drive it home. And for me, when I think about being Black, I think about really being denied, being discriminated, being looked over. That's one side of the ledger, but also based upon historical experiences, I also see boldness and moving beyond and being an overcomer. And so perspective has a lot to do with it, right? But when you look from my lenses versus the lenses of others, others may see me as Black as being a threat, right? Being someone that they fear, right? One that dress up every week and play that passion within to deny, right? And so I think if you look at the times, there's a reason hashtag Black Lives Matter. Just period, Black Lives Matter. It's the experience of being Black in America that has real meaning, that has real sociological, economically, educationally, all of it impact that separate you from everybody else in this struggle. Let me sign.
I think he just dropped the mic on us.
the virtual mic drop.
First time I seen that. Let me put myself on mute in the middle of my sentence.
That's a great skill. I'm gonna have to use that.
Yeah.
Okay. Ryan, Terrence, do you want to get in on this, or I can move on? It's up to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, when you asked me the first question, again, counterintuitive, right? Like for me, I think being Black is a privilege. I think being Black is royalty. I think being Black is awesome. Unfortunately, there's a society that doesn't agree. But I believe Black is beautiful. And it's unfortunate that we have a Black History Month, right? It's unfortunate that so many things in our history books have conditioned us to have a way of thinking that's so untrue of who we are as a people and as a creation. You know, and I think about the struggles that those before us have gone through. I mean, talk about faith and power and overcomer, as Pastor Long said. I mean, that gets me excited. But yeah, when you look around the corner, though, we're black men, right? But I that's the perspective that I just have to go about my day and do business. Is that, you know, I'm a black man. God created me in His likeness and in His image, and that's the persona which I'm gonna go about today. And all the other stuff, man, it's what it is, you know. And I'll mute myself too because I don't want to get ahead of it.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
You know, after listening to all the guys, I don't really know what else I can add to that. One of the things that I can bring to the discussion is looking at it from an inner city point of view. If you heard my story, I'm from Washington, D.C. Washington, D.C. was the murder capital. You know, it was nothing for black men and boys to be killed, you know, in any given moment. And the words that was often associated with us in the communities was derogatory. You know, there was nothing positive about being black. You know what I'm saying? We were misfits. We were uneducated. We were misguided. You know, we were hostile. We were violent. It wasn't a whole lot of positive descriptions or narratives for the black male in the inner city at that time. But going back to what the other guys said, we are exceptional people. You know, I've been saying that a lot in my series yesterday. We are very exceptional. We are brilliant. We are leaders. We are fathers. We're spiritual leaders. We are loving. We want to protect our families. We want to protect our communities. We understand our strengths. It's just we can't come together for whatever reason. And that's by design too. And that's another discussion. But if I had to add something to what's being said, I would say that from a negative lens, the word, you know, being marginalized and just derogatory would be that. On the good side, we are exceptional, we are brilliant, we are kings. And we do bring a lot of value to the world despite what is being said about us.
Wow. You know, Ryan said something that just had me thinking, and I just have to bring this back up. You know, he said it was unfortunate that we have to have a Black History Month. And I agree with that from this lens. You know, other cultures have things that they celebrate, things that they put on to honor what they've done and the accomplishments they've had. They put them on to remind them of the great things that they've done. And it seems like Black History Month was created and continues to be necessary to tell us of the great things that we've done, because for a lot of us, it was never taught to us in traditional school. And for a lot of the people, our generations behind us and the ones that are coming up now, they still don't recognize it because it's more important to them to determine whether they're going to live the next day, or whether they're going to be taken out by the stray bullet, or whether they're going to be a victim of oppression or police brutality, or the myriad of different things that are out there. So it's Black History Month becomes more important because it's to tell us that, yes, we are kings. Yes, we do come from queens. Yes, we did build the pyramids. Yes, we did do all these great things back in the day, and we continue to do these great things today, but we don't hear about it enough so that it becomes ingrained in our own mentality, in our own minds, so that we walk the walk and talk the talk of that history, as like all the other ethnic groups who celebrate the things that they celebrate with pride. It's almost like, really, we did that? So that's the discouraging thing about it, that we have to do it to remind us that we did it, as opposed to celebrate the fact that we did do it.
You know, Terrence, you took me back to a place. The three words I heard was history, which is
Mhm.
his story, right?
Absolutely.
And when you're talking about the things that's been ingrained in us, and Ryan, you talked about being conditioned. It take me back to when I was in high school. I went to Woodrow Wilson High School, which is in the Georgetown area of Washington, D.C. And, I was taking U.S. government, and the class was being taught by a Black female. And we were learning about all these different quote unquote, United States heroes like the Columbus, the Woodrow Wilsons, presidents, and all that. And so I challenged her. I said, let me ask you something. Who's in the room the majority of the time when you're teaching these classes? And she thought I was trying to be, excuse my language, a smartass, but I really wasn't. I was just saying, hey, we keep learning about this
Them.
Anglo-Saxon history that we can't identify with, right? Why are we being taught this on so many levels? I mean, I can remember from ninth grade all the way up. Yeah, we did have 1 month for Black history. We talk about Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey and Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and that was great, Harriet Tubman. But it just seemed like it was so institutionalized where they was going to constantly keep embedding in us the white history, the white Anglo-Saxon history. And I just asked a very calculated question. Why are we being taught this on so many levels? You know what I'm saying? So consistent every single year. Why do we need to learn about Christopher Columbus and all these other people that we cannot, we can't even identify with? And she kicked me out the class. She kicked me out because she said, you're not going to disturb this class. We're trying to, learn something. I'm trying to educate you all. And, you're pretty much just being, I forgot the word they used to use back in the day, but I was really offended looking at an older Black woman who was very educated. She didn't have an answer for me and refused to answer the question. So when you're talking about being conditioned, she was conditioned to say, we're only going to talk about what's on the curriculum, right? But at some point, when do you say, let me go and defy that? These kids need to know some of the Black pioneers that came up before them and what they've done to contribute to the United States, right? And so that always just left an impression with me, when I really started looking at the school systems a little differently and what's being taught, not just to my generation, but the generation before me, and I'm sure the generations that's coming after me. And yeah, it's serious out here as far as what they embed into our spirits. And then we constantly ask that question, when are we going to see more of us? When we're going to hear about more of us? We were kings, but we don't see it.
Right.
It's not oftentimes being told to us. We don't have anything to identify with as a model. And so it just kind of took me back to that time, when I was being challenged at a young age. I think I was, 16? And that's crazy. So yeah, I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, Ryan sort of made me go back when he started with the positive aspect of being Black, and I totally agree. But it dawned on me that the response to that is almost like your caption, the voices of a Black man. And what drives that, the answer to that, it really is driven by environmental influences in your life. For example, I came up in rural North Carolina, segregated, all the way up to military before I knew that I had some opportunity to do something different, right? Even in a controlled environment. And then as I shared, to come back home and all I wanted was a barbecue sandwich, I have my uniform on and I'm told I got to go in the back door. Now, I've just spent a year giving my life, sacrificing my life as an infantry paratrooper combat soldier, and I can't get a barbecue sandwich, right? So I'm going to take my boot and open up the front door. But for my aunt, who reminded me when you left, things were like this. And now you're back, things are still way. So I guess my answer to that question is what really drives that is the environmental influences that you've had that sort of anchored you with perspective and lens that respond to that question. It's your experiences, it's your environment. And we all of that. I'm not dropping anything this time.
Not this time. Not this time. Not this time. So, wow. Okay. So, I want to take this a little bit to current times. I want to take this a little bit to just kind of the atmosphere of what's been happening right now in society. But I want to talk about it not from the street level, but from the corporate level. I want to look at corporations have been called to the rug to have a voice, to have to figure out what side they're on, whether they're supporting Black Lives Matter and the movement or they're not, and are being penalized either way, right? Depending on what side other people sit on, they're being penalized either way. And I want to take it to the NFL for a moment. You guys, sports, hey, all right. One of the things that they proposed is to sing Lift Every Voice before the national anthem. And I wanted to get you guys' take on, does that make a stance? Is that what's needed? That's what we're looking for? That just makes things better or says, yeah, now they support us, they support Black Lives Matter. Or what? What is that where it's supposed to be? Now, I know for HBCUs, which is historically Black colleges and universities, usually before games, especially tournaments and things like that, they sing that song. And for the viewers who don't know, Lift Every Voice is kind of like the Black or African American culture kind of anthem, right? Kind of the song for us from way back civil rights days. And it would check me if I didn't go back far enough for that. But I just want to get you guys' take on the NFL proposing to sing Lift Every Voice before the national anthem.
I hate to jump out here, but first of all, most of them saying you're gonna have to look at a program. That's one point. The second point is no one will be able to relate to as we do with the lyrics to the song. So the song is powerful. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who's led us thus far along the way. Those stuff, stony the road we have trodden. I mean, if you really want to show support in the Black community, put finances in programs and services and education that will build our people and not with paper on a song that nobody understands and can relate to. Robert Smith, the billionaire, has challenged corporate America to take 2% of your earnings and invest it in Black programs, all right? And so how many corporations are stepping up? Google stepped up, and then they want to target it to ways that they can find programs that they can say, well, we made an investment, but they don't show your balance sheet to say that there's 2% of their earnings. And I think Netflix stepped up and gave some dollars, but I haven't seen the majority of the corporations set up. But if they would do something that's real impactful rather than a song, shame on them to think that they are doing this appeasement thing that gratify the NFL and does not and it does not do anything for the Black community.
Yeah, all these Band-Aids, it's this Band-Aid syndrome, right? Like all these little places where we can just kind of place a Band-Aid and kind of try, eventually you got a poster board of Band-Aids trying to cover up a very, very deeply rooted issue. The Blacks in an NFL stadium are on the field. They're not in the stands. And to take that a step further, to Pastor DeLong's point, it's an economic conversation. Like anywhere you go across the board, it is an economic conversation. You get economics together, a lot of these problems go away. Now let's take it right to the NFL. The average NFL career is 2 to 3 years. The average NFL player will make $1 million a year. And at the end of the average NFL career, they are broke. 70% of them have to go get a job. Now tell me, where is the empowerment? Where is the leverage of all of that money that's going into those guys' pockets that they know they haven't been taught? They know where they came from. They didn't have the followers. They didn't have the financial literacy. I can't understand how a system like an NBA or a NFL can bring all of these young men into this league, put that amount of money in their hands with no education and direction to set them up to thrive. You want to give the NFL power? Put the power into the hands of the players to be able to distribute that wealth to their communities.
Yeah, Ryan, he took all my points. So I have nothing to add. Look, I was thinking, yeah, it's a Band-Aid, and I was going to talk about economics. But I do have a question, though. I remember Warren Sapp used to play for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He had made a very controversial statement some time ago, and he said NFL is a slave trade. How you guys feel about that? Was he pretty accurate on that?
Man, now we got the hard-hitting topics coming up.
Yes,
So,
that's
short answer to your question, Terrence, is yes and no. Yes, because they're brought in to produce. In the slave trade, slaves were hired to come in and produce, to do something that the slave owners couldn't do. In modern day society, if we want to stay with the NFL conversation, but it applies to any sports conversation, even hockey, we're brought in to do what the owners can't do, which is put a product on the field that brings money and continues to enhance their status. So yes, but then no, because we have some kind of knowledge of what we're walking into. As slaves, we had no choice. We had no idea what we were walking into. We get to choose now. We get to choose whether you want to be the next billionaire who comes up with the next tech company that outperforms Google and Amazon, or we get to choose the easy route, which is what has been perceived upon us, placed upon us, and bred in us from the moment that we're born. You know, you grow up, you're a Black man, you have these certain athletic abilities over other people, go and hone those skills, and then you go play football, you go play basketball, you even back in the day, go play baseball. You have this great big payday, and that's it. You don't talk about what happens after you get the payday. So that becomes a choice for us. And if we don't understand that it's more than just the dollar bills that you make or can make, it's what you do with the dollar bills after you make them that's going to make the difference, then we'll continue to be cattle taken to the proverbial slaughterhouse, as opposed to investors in a system that can bring back more from our initial investment than what we put in the beginning. So that's with that question. But to go back to what Ryan was talking about, you know, when you look at all these different entities, all these different sports things, and you talk about that appeasing us by playing a song, you know, I grew up in Chicago, and, you know, Chicago now has that bad rap of being the big city crime capital of the country. And where the football team played 3 blocks away used to be public housing. Well, when they rebuilt the stadium, they tore down all the public housing under the guise that they were going to send everybody in public housing, which was typically Black, to a better situation. Well, in reality, they was moving them out of that situation so that now they could bring the other population back closer to the stadium, because those were the people that were able to buy the tickets to go to the stadium. The people in public housing couldn't pay for those tickets, so people weren't coming. And the people who could pay for them didn't want to go through that neighborhood to get to the stadium because they feared for their lives, because we were perceived as being poor and out of control. So what am I saying about that? A song is not going to appease us. How about taking some of that millions and billions of dollars that you get each year from the television contracts and from all of the people who are paying for seats that they rarely ever come to, and investing that back into the community? How about coming out of your ivory towers and actually walking the streets in which your stadium surrounds and making a presence there? If you do that, that's going to make more of an impact than you singing a song before you play a game.
I would
And I'll
call it
drop my
Kaepernick.
mic.
I would call in Kaepernick answer that question.
I mean, has he gotten a phone call yet? Has he gotten an invitation yet? I mean, what's going on with that?
I'm just saying, right?
You know,
Well,
he's a hard
actually,
man
he
to
just signed
get in touch with.
a contract to do a documentary series. I think it's with Hulu. He's going to be doing a 10-part documentary series talking about racism and all its different effects.
Yeah.
So,
but
So is the question, would he stand or would he kneel?
There you go. And which bring you to an element of slavery would be that what happened when you don't conform.
Right.
When you open your mouth with action, voices.
I can't forget who said it, but I love this quote, and I'm gonna tear it up. But it says something about courage isn't the opposite of fear. It's the lack of courage isn't the absence of fear. It's conformity.
Yeah.
So like the opposite of courage being conformity.
Yeah.
Not like being strong and brave, but conformity. Yeah. Like when you just conform to the ways, to the conditioning. You know, Dr. King said something about like, that's going to be the fall, you know, of us. It's not the ones that really hate us. It's those of us that are just conditioned and just go along to get along. Like that's what's really going to hurt us. Right. Like I said in a talk Thursday, again, I'm not fighting the guy who don't like me and hates me. That's his prerogative. But the ones that's right here with us, what are we going to do? Like if you're about change, what is the change that you're going to make, that you're going to force to implement, or are you just going to go along to get along?
Yeah. You know, Dr. King also said the true measure of a man is not where you sit in times of comfort and convenience, but where you stand in times of controversy and conflict. And we're in the time of controversy, and we're definitely in the time of conflict. So where are we going to stand? Are we going to stand with the status quo that got us to this conflict and this controversy? Are we going to do something different? You know, and so that's for a lot of us, that's what I think this time, this quote unquote pandemic has awakened in a lot of people. You know, people were asleep, and like the young folks say, you know, you got to stay woke. And I think this woke up a lot of people to not only this health scare, but this overall situation that we found ourselves living in. And that has birthed shows just like this.
You know, you take me somewhere, Terrence, that I wanted to go next because you guys all talked about it, and thank you for sharing your heart on the song at the beginning of NFL games. I hear you loud and clear in what you're saying, but that sends us to one of the things that you guys talked about being the answer more so than a song or Band-Aids. And I wish we had time to get into Band-Aids because that's a whole nother topic in itself. But I want to talk about Washington Post on June 4th. They released an article that said the Black and white economic gap remains as wide as 1968. And it has to do with COVID was a piece of that, right? COVID-19 kind of was a piece of that. I say it's not the whole piece, but it was a piece of that. It's kind of the lens that they started it through. And so when we talk about where we need to take actions and where there needs to be change and not just Band-Aids, I can't help but go back to that article of the Black and white economic gap remains as wide as in 1968. I want to add this other thing in there that a lot of people don't know is that when we talk about wealth, white wealth and Black wealth, there's two different measuring sticks for what's wealthy to be Black and what's wealthy to be white. And I'm going to leave it there and open the floor for you guys.
Now, is Black people wealthy or they just rich?
I mean, those all relative terms, right? Depending on where you
Yeah,
sit and when, because I may think that
yeah,
having $20,000 is rich, and somebody else may say that is still poor. So, but there is a different measure. I can't remember the exact numbers. I wish I could pull them up. And as you guys talk, if you see me looking to the side, I'll try and see if I can find them. But our wealth, to be wealthy, or where we are wealthy, and I'm not talking about Oprah, and I'm just talking about the culture as a whole, is at a lot less. Our line to be wealthy is a lot lower than for the white line to be what they consider part of the 10% in the wealthy.
Wow.
That's why I said it's an economic conversation, right?
yeah.
Because it's that gap. And if you go back and look historically, and Pastor Long, you can probably speak to this, I'm sure you can, is that, two things. One, they got a head start, right? Because there were systemic policies, programs, redlining, all these different things that were put in place that we could not get equity in anything. And they were gaining all the equity. So they had such a head start, the tortoise and the hare, right? Like the hare got off to a great start and the tortoise could not get a grip. However, if you look at the Black economic spend today, we are at $1.3 trillion spend. If you looked at us from a gross domestic product perspective, we'd be like the 6th or 7th largest country, right? As a people. So the money is coming through our hands. So that's what I'm saying. So to me, it's two things. Number one, we've definitely we got out the gate. We were held and not able to get out the gate at the same rate. But to a degree, I feel like we've gained some traction, but now we haven't been taught, nor have we applied the principles associated with building wealth, which is what gives me hope that there's opportunity. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, I think you make some good point. I think it's behavior to some degree, right? Is that if you look at most ethnic groups, when they come into America, they band together, they pool their resources, then they create entrepreneurship opportunities, and they become owners, and they sacrifice a lot to become owners. We are guilty sometimes of this sociological term of conspicuous consumption.
Yeah,
That we spend a whole lot of money, but we don't recycle it in our community. Most of the money we spend really is external. And you're right, Ryan, we've been driven by a number of systemic and inherent and structural racial policies that have tracked us throughout many generations, right? And so if you go back in history, back during pre-Reconstruction day, we were doing good. Black Wall Street, right? Vastly disappeared. And we are trying to recreate, but we cannot get to the point of taking those dollars that we have. You go back to 2008, when we had the economic meltdown. What was the greatest source of our equity? Home ownership. Home ownership among African Americans are down, right? And so how do we get back to that? It is, you look at this perennial tracking of data, economic disparity in every category, right? Wealth, it's almost 7 to 1. Education, gaps there. Housing, gaps there. And so it really goes back to this problem we've been battling for years, and that is racism. I don't care how you get around it, right? But then part of it is on us. How do we get to the point that we become very purpose and intentional in spending our money on us and our community to build our community? Until we get to do that, we'll never get back to the place we were able to own hotels and other things that say that we had arrived economically.
I agree, and I like that. The second point is where I want to stick with. For us as a people, And for the purpose of this conversation, this is the Voices of the Black Man. I'm sharing this on my page, and I do have some other races that are speaking and commenting about our conversation. So that's great, because we do want the conversation as well. But there's a difference between lottery rich and legacy wealthy. Let me say that again. Lottery rich and legacy wealthy.
Look out here.
See, we go to the corner store and get a Coca-Cola and buy a lottery ticket. And if that lottery ticket wins us $25, I'm rich. So we think, because that's what we've seen. And the quote that is so paramount each and every day and continues to plague us as a society is that we can't be what we haven't seen. See, we haven't seen legacy wealthy. What's legacy wealthy? Generational wealth, where Mr. Brown was wealthy 3 generations ago, and he passed that wealth on to his son, another Mr. Brown, and he maintained that wealth. And oh, by the way, he taught his son how to be wealthy, Mr. Brown. Now we're in 3 generations of wealth. That's legacy wealth, as opposed to that first Mr. Brown I spoke to won $1 million, but nobody taught him how to hold on to that $1 million and how to reinvest that $1 million so that it would not be $1 million, it'd be $10 million and $100 million. Instead, they told him how to buy the Cadillac or buy the deuce and a quarter. And then I'm showing my age when I talk about the deuce and a quarter, to have the boomerang rim on the back and to have the spinning wheels. That meant you was rich in the community. If you could roll through with the speakers blaring and you're hopping from one side, you rich. But then 5 years later, that $1 million is $1 because you gave the money to everybody with no accountability, and you didn't have a system to keep replenishing the money that you gave out with no accountability. And now you're back still living in that 2-bedroom apartment or that 1-bedroom apartment with 6 people that you were living in before you went to the corner store to get that lottery ticket. So that's our issue. And that has nothing to do with them. That has to do with us. There are many Black millionaires and billionaires out there. So clearly we know how to become wealthy and we know how to maintain wealthiness. But here's this thing that we continue to fight with, and it's that ideal of collaboration versus competition. I don't want to give Terrence nothing, even though he got the same name I got. I'm not going to give it to him because he may go farther with what I gave him than what I was able to do. And I can't have that. And I certainly can't give it to Ryan because Ryan's name, he doesn't even sound like somebody who lives in my hood. So why would I give it to Ryan? Because if Ryan takes it, he's sure enough going to go off of it. And then where's that going to leave me? As opposed to me thinking, well, if I give a little bit to Terrence and I give a little bit to Ryan and we all work together to do the same things, we can have 3 times as much as what I had by myself. See, that's the spirit of collaboration. But we haven't been taught that enough. It hasn't been inbred enough so that we can learn how to recycle our money 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times before it ever leaves our community, like the people within our community that have the stores, that have the wealth, because they came into our community and did what we didn't know how to do in our own community. I'm done.
Yeah, you make a good point. And again, I hate to bring his name up again, but I think Robert Smith, not only one who is a billionaire, right, but he is talking with other, collaborating. For example, he collaborated with Magic Johnson around this paycheck protection program to make sure that CDFIs managed by Blacks had an opportunity to participate. Not only did he try to bring others in the fold, but he also made some investment with his own firm by providing software to CDFIs who did not have it. And you're talking about $20,000 that he did for about 10 CDFIs. That was from his personal balance sheet. And so when we have this collaboration among those with wealth to begin to try to build wealth within our communities, then we're gonna see some systematic changes. Until that happens, and if we don't change our behavior, we have the same discussion 10 years from now. It might be divorce of a Black man rather than divorce of a Black man. I'm done, y'all.
So, Mr. Linwood, if you would just let us know for our viewers, what are CDFIs?
Oh, I'm sorry. Community Development Financial Institutions. Primarily
And
those
what's their
involved
place?
involved in housing development, small business lending, new market tax credit, and a number of community economic development issues. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yeah, absolutely. We want to make sure that, you know, people understand what that is, because CDFIs are very important, especially in our community.
Yes.
As we start wrapping up here, you guys, you know, I've had a good time with you all. You dropped the mics a couple times. And I know that there's plenty more that we could talk about. So hopefully one day, you know, I don't know, this year, next year, 10 years from now, I don't know. One day we can get back together and have some more conversation. But I want to give you all a chance to say what's on your heart. Before we get there, I have one last question for each one of you. And that question is, what's next? And it's open just like that. Don't ask me, what do you mean, what's next and what? What's next?
Continue.
If I had to put my spin on it, I've been, in my spirit, I've been hearing new leadership. We got to have leadership at this point. And, you know, it's one thing to talk about socioeconomics, you know, ethno-aggregation, vertical, you know, integration, all these big terms. But how do we connect those dots in the Black community? You know, we do have a wealth of resources. I think it was Ryan who spoke on it earlier, saying, hey, you know, with the money that's coming through our hands, when you're talking about consuming, we're up in the trillions. So we do have access to the capital. But I think oftentimes what's getting missed in the conversation, or what's getting lost in translation, is where's the new direction? How can we see it? You know, how is it applicable to me as an individual? You know, how can I take my money and realign it and reassign it, you know, for bigger end goal that's going to impact the communities abroad and not just for me and my family? And I think those are conversations that we need to have when we talk about the word coalitions. We need to have real conversations about what that means and what work needs to be done to ensure that these coalitions are very successful moving forward, because that is a new narrative in the Black community right now. We can't be individuals anymore. We keep saying that. We can't keep doing things the old ways that didn't produce any results abroad for our people. And so these are the type of forums that we need to be on. We need to talk about the Robert Smiths and the Bob Johnsons and all these other, you know, tycoon billionaires who understand how to, you know, gain wealth, not being rich. As Terrence said earlier, lottery rich. We got to change our paradigm. We got to change our mindset on that. How do we have generational wealth? What do we do to build towards that? And if we can have more conversations, calculated conversations, directional conversations, then perhaps we can really experience the real Black economy that we've been talking about within, you know, within America. So that would be my take on that.
Mine's short, 3 terms: financial literacy, entrepreneurship, economic empowerment.
I would say, what's next? Well, when you become aware, then you can take action. We're aware. We've been aware for a long time. The what's next is to take the action. And how do you take the action? Well, you know, I love hanging out with people who are smarter than me, and I have the opportunity to hang out with Dr. George C. Frazier, who does the Power Networking Conference each and every year. And he said, before you can be a leader of many, you have to be a leader of one. So what does that mean? Are you the leader in your own home? Are you practicing financial literacy in your own home? Are you practicing economic empowerment in your own home? Are you balancing your own budget, or are you just spending frivolously? Are you looking for the next lottery ticket, or are you looking to build the legacy in your own home? You know, someone said that, you know, if the tongue in your mouth doesn't match the tongue in your shoe, why should I listen to you? So if you're just talking, but you're not walking what you're talking, I'm not going to listen to you. So be the leader of one before you attempt to be the leader of many.
Good.
Good.
Yeah, I think for me, I hate to go biblical on you, but since I'm a preacher, I'm gonna take that liberty because it's real. You know, Jesus said that say not 4 months, then come the harvest. I'm paraphrasing this, but he said, "But open your eyes, look at the field; they are white, ready for the harvest." Meaning that there's plenty of work to be done, and we really need to go to work. For me, it's work, and that work is about sowing into others.
Yeah.
Love it.
Wonderful. No, don't hate to go biblical. Do it. Do it.
I just said that. I just said that.
Yeah.
Ryan,
No.
I didn't mind doing that.
Oh, yeah. That's why I love our conversations, my friend.
Yeah.
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 So have we lost our way? Have we lost, and this is my last question in giving you guys the floor to wrap up. Have we lost our way? Because we talk about where we're individuals now, but there was a time when we were like a village, when we taught each other, we worked for each other, we looked after each other. And on a lot of the different interviews this week, we talked about walking down the street and getting in trouble all the way down the street until you got home, because everybody knew before you got home, before cell phones and all of that stuff, everybody knew, and you were held accountable. But not only held accountable for the bad, they were there holding you accountable because they wanted you to be better. And what they knew, they imparted into you. And I know a wealth of families, especially in the rural areas when we talk about agriculture, that have left land and houses and different things down to the generations, that's kind of gotten lost, you know, as we've gotten older, because we decided that we wanted to be more like mainstream or more like society. Did we have the blueprint and the plan and lose it trying to be like everybody else?
I think on many levels, integration was the death of us. You know, we were a powerful economic system faction within America. And then somehow we left our own independence and wanted to be integrated with everyone else. You know, so I think if you want to put a villain in that, I would say integration. You know, we have to be comfortable in just supporting us and stop inviting everyone else in and trying to be a voice for everyone else. You know, you talk about the Jewish, when they first came to America, you know, they worked well with Blacks. You know, we were very tight with the Jewish community. And as soon as the Jewish community learned that we were talking about economic growth, you know, they pretty much say, hey, we don't want to have that discussion with you guys, because as long as we can continue to, you know, connect and support one another, but we can't talk about how you can sustain your own economic system within the country. We're not going to support you moving forward if you continue to have those conversations. And so we have to stop trying to integrate and align ourselves with everyone else, you know, at this point. I think there's strength in our community. I think there's a lot of power in our community. There's growth in our community. And I think we are starting to see some of the mistakes that we've made. And I think we're coming back to that equilibrium of saying, hey, let's go ahead and get back to our roots and get back to supporting one another. And so, yeah, I do believe that integration played a significant role in our downfall. Yeah.
I want to send this question to Mr. Linwood next, because you talked about being raised and coming up in the time of segregation, you know, and then into integration, and that's a interesting take. What do you see from being on both sides of that?
Well, I'll use this word hope. I still have hope, right? I look at, and I think I shared this with you and perhaps with others. I have looked at this younger generation and say that they see some commonality in our struggle, commonality in the disparities, and have lifted up the mantle of Frederick Douglass, who say power concedes nothing without a demand. And from that, we see this Black Lives Matter movement. And I think they are really, whether we accept it or not, they're making some long-lasting change. I was telling my wife that the death of George Floyd is not in vain, right? As terrible as it was, there's positive coming out of that in terms of bringing us together for a common purpose that we, I think, as a people, will realize those values and those characteristics that Ryan talked about, that we are Black, we are beautiful, but yet still we're going to demand to be treated right and with fair and equity. And that's my hope.
And equity is different than equality.
Oh yeah, just as inclusion is, right? Yeah. I included you. You can include me, but if you don't make me, if I cannot access the capital, if I cannot access opportunity, then I'm just at the table.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for those distinctions. That's
yes, sir.
So important.
They gotta be. They gotta be, right? Yeah. We can be broke at the table. We can be broke at the table.
Absolutely.
I'm at the table, but I'm broke.
Ryan, Terrence, Leffridge, TL, I'll call you. You guys have any input?
Original question, because I think it kind of went a couple ways.
The original question dealt with did we have the formula and lost our way trying to be like mainstream?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like to think that we were on our way to the promised land once upon a time. And some things happened by design and some by our own actions. You know, the intentional destruction and demolishing of some of the most thriving Black communities across the country. So unfortunate, you know, those areas have never been rebuilt, never recovered. So in so many instances, we were on our way. And again, by demand, some of those were knocked down. But then, I mean, over time, you know, as a country and certainly as a people, we've become consumers. I can't remember who touched on that earlier. We've become victims of the media and this lifestyle. And, you know, if I can be biblical for a second, it's very simple. The Bible says, without a vision, his people perish. And we've lost vision, you know, for our lives, for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, certainly for the country and the world. And when you don't have vision and leadership, right, to help orchestrate that vision, you know, I can't ever say that without this example. How does a man, before all of this technology and email, get 250 people to the mall on Washington? Well, it's because he had a vision. And if we can unite with vision, I mean, we're unstoppable. You know, Harriet Tubman had a vision, and look what all she endured to get to that. And so I think, we've lost our way, but it's because we've lost the vision. We haven't lost that vision. And I'll just close with this. I asked my mom a long time ago. I said, Mom, why y'all haven't done a little better? You know, Dad made the money, right? I'm just a transparent guy, right? They're probably watching like, here he go. But here's what she told me. She said, Ryan, we never really had a vision for our family, right? I mean, loving parents, but just the principle of that never really landed. And so again, that's not to talk about my parents. That's just to say how much better they've done well, but how much better could we all do if we have a vision? Because that vision shapes our behaviors, Dr. Long, right? That vision determines how we behave. And so without it, we perish, we drown. And perish is a hard way to go, right? Like perish, not get killed, not get, you know, but perish. And that's what's happening to us to some degree.
Yeah. And I may add to that, that you cannot teach what you have not been taught.
That's right.
And that was exactly where I was going with my conversation. Pastor Long, as now I know you are, Pastor Long, he talks about the word hope. I talk about, in addition to hope, possibility. Before 2016, we didn't have hope that there would be someone that looked like us at 1600 Black Lives Matter Avenue. But then 2008 happened, and 2012 happened. And so in 2016, we know that it's possible because it always happened. So that gives us hope. You mentioned earlier, Sherelle, about we were given land, but we didn't know what to do with it. Well, you know what? There's this phrase that was taught to me when I was young. If you give me a fish, I'll eat for a day. But if you teach me to fish, I'll eat for a lifetime. So you just can't give me the land and not teach me how to till the land, how to fertilize the land, how to harvest the land, how to reseed the land, and how to do that process over and over again. You give me the land, I may eat for that season, but what about next season? But if you teach me what giving me that land meant, number one, and then teach me how to keep that land so that I can teach other people how to get land and do the same thing, then we've not only created hope, but we've created a new possibility. So we have everything we need to turn this obstacle that we're facing right now into an opportunity to create new hope and new possibilities. We just got to move from the fact that we know it into doing something with it.
Application.
Great point. Yeah.
I want to just make an extension on Terrence's point, and I learned this, and so I'm at the table, so I'm sharing, right? Pastor Long said, if you're at the table, you got to share what you get.
Right.
And so what I learned, TL, was that yes, you teach a man to fish, you give a man a fish, he eats for a day. You teach him to fish, he eats for a lifetime. But what happens if we own the pond?
Okay.
So right now, I believe we got to teach our people to own the pond, because even if you can get to the pond, if someone else is dictating whether you can throw your rod in it or not,
that's good.
Still can't pull any fish out of it. So that's why it goes back to, I think, financial literacy, which is positioning us to now have ownership, which is entrepreneurship, which is the economic empowerment piece. We got to own something. We got to have that equity. And so, yeah, we got to own the pond. We need a few ponds to fish out of, and then we can teach a lot of people to fish when we own the pond.
That's why this is called Voices of a Black Man, not just Voice.
Yeah. You see, the problem is the majority know that you'll be dangerous if you own the pond.
Yes, sir.
So they want to keep you on the lake fishing.
Yes, sir.
Right. Yeah, I'll teach you how to fish, but I ain't gonna teach you how to own anything. Yeah, I'm not gonna give you the money that you can buy your own business, right? Yeah. So you can hire some people to look like you.
Absolutely. I mean, that goes back to the NFL, right?
That's right.
They teaching them.
They teach
boys a pond.
Yeah. But Neil.
And I had mentioned the Jewish community, and that's exactly what they did. They understood how to build their own pond. And you look at them today. How did they get to that point? What was some talking points, some education points that they instilled in generation after generation to being an economic powerhouse? You know what I'm saying? So even if you go back and look at how the Jewish community was able to instill some principles in self and in their communities to become an economic powerhouse, those are some of the things that we need to look into as a race of people ourselves and figure out how can we go up that ladder? How can we continue to build towards owning our own pond? You know what I'm saying? So when I said earlier, the right conversations, that's the conversation I'm looking to be a part of. And so, Ryan, that was a great point that you just made. You too, Terrence with an A.
So, gentlemen, this has been great. I could keep you here all day with questions because the more you talk, the more questions I have. I have so enjoyed this. Thank you so much for taking out time on your Saturday to be with us. I'm gonna leave. I told you that was gonna be my last question, and I promise as many. I got like 20 more, but that's my last question. I want to hand it over to you all to just say what's ever on your heart. What do you want to leave? Either a person, a community, the society, whoever you want to talk to, whatever you want to leave them with. And I'm just gonna let whoever wants to go first go first.
Yeah, I want to sort of sum it up in my mind from the voice of Fannie Lou Hamer, who said, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired."
Yes, sir.
And I use that as a preface to say that Martin Luther King Jr. said something interesting. He said, and I wrote this down, there comes a time when silence is betrayal.
Yeah.
That's deep, right? That when I should be speaking, right, because of convenience and because of self-interest, I say nothing. And therefore I become complicit to the evilness and other things that happen around me for my own vested interest. And so I think we ought to call out those things that hinder us and keep us in a place where we cannot move to be owners rather than users. And I think that's a platform that we all ought to be about, is that creating opportunities for us not to be borrowers, but lenders. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Long.
Well, I'd just like to take this platform and first of all, just again, Sherelle, thank you for this opportunity, for your vision. And I just want to take this time, man, just to vocally thank Mr. Long. He's been such an inspiration to me. I've had the pleasure of sitting down with him on a few occasions, and he's just poured into me. So what we're talking about here has been applied in action. So we're not just up here talking. When I took this role of CEO, and I was looking for a mentor, and a mutual friend of ours, Angela, connected us, and he said, "Absolutely, young man." And he's been so encouraging. In my LinkedIn post, he calls me the young leader, and so I can't help but think positive. Like you said, it's who you hang around. And so I say all that to say is that no matter where you are, I want to challenge the listeners to do two things: find a mentor and be a mentor. Find somebody who can pour into your life, and then find some people that you can pour into. And I believe that's how we live a life. That's how we leave a legacy. And the voices of a Black man continues on.
You too kind, sir.
I mean it, my friend. We got to get back together, though. Forget this COVID, man. Let's get together.
I know. It's time. Yeah.
Well, there's the strength in numbers. It's good to see so many powerful Black men together on one stage, talking about things that's relevant. You know what I'm saying? That's filling your soul with a lot of information, giving you some direction, giving you hope and possibilities. This is what it's about. Having the right conversations that's going to edify, our people. And as Ryan says, mentorship is key, especially when you have the right mentor, that's seen it, have done it, can guide you, can direct you, could lead you. And when I go back, taking it on the inner city level, and I've witnessed all the ingenuity with these boys that was being murdered at such young ages, that was lacking, was the direction and the leadership and the possibility, the hope. So if we can go ahead and continue to infuse that back into our people, especially the generation coming up, because they're taking it, boy. They're like, look, that was enough. We're going to do what we're going to do regardless. They're upset, they're mad, they're irritated. They're waiting for people like us to lead. And so I'm just very excited about platforms like these, Sherelle. I commend you on this. This was timely. It's needed. I think people need to see these beautiful people on this platform. And I just encourage you to keep doing it. Just keep bringing diversity to your show. I love this. Pass it along, TL. I would love to, connect with you guys as well. Like I said, I'm always looking to be around guys that, I can benefit from and learn from. Ryan is already my inspiration. He knows that. That's my boy. Love him to death. And again, I'm just so grateful to be on this platform. So thank you, Sherelle. I've had a great time.
Thank you,
And
Terrence.
you caught that prophecy, didn't you? He said your show.
I did.
And that's
And
what I do.
and I'm gonna plant this seed. One of my good friends, Ken Branson, who is a media guru,
Yeah.
said that you have excellent interview skills. So
Oh,
I'm gonna
wow.
plant that seed right there.
Ken Branson, Mastermind
Thank
Productions,
you.
man. Great guy.
And you thought you were just the CFO of your own business, right, Sherelle? There you go. God, God has greater in store for you. That documentary is not just a seed, that is a tree that is just waiting to be manifested. And I want to echo what all the other guys have said. Thank you so much for reaching out, for creating this platform and allowing us to be on it. I've been blessed beyond what I ever thought I could be by being a part of it. I've been able to rediscover my voice and to discover that there are other voices that are passionate about this as well. And, you know, I just going to end with this. God is a funny God. And this is why I say that. Because at a time where we're all being encouraged, told, and even in some places being mandated to wear a mask over our mouth, we are using our voice even more and more. And that's only could happen from an out of this world God like that. So I want everybody to continue to focus more on what you're able to do with your voice and less of what's stopping you with all the things that are going on around us. And then together we can all be unstoppable under the leadership of C.K. James and the voices of the Black men.
Thank you, Terrence, so much. Thank you all again for once again sharing your hearts, sharing your minds, sharing your knowledge and your wisdom and experiences. This has been amazing, absolutely amazing. And like I said, I have so many more questions, but for another day, for another time, I'm going to ask all of you to just hang on the line with me just for a moment as I talk to the viewers and close things out. Please don't go anywhere. I'm going to say to the viewers, thank you so much for tuning in on your Saturday, in the middle of the day, 12 noon on your Saturday, tuning in and listening to this conversation. Now, like I told you, the Voices of a Black Man is a platform so that Black men can be seen and heard, because everyone was telling their narrative, but no one was really talking to them. So their story wasn't being seen and heard from them. Hopefully you got something today. Hopefully you understand, number one, that Black men are men who happen to be Black, but are proud to be Black. Number two, that Black men come in different economic bases, different experience, different backgrounds, different dreams and aspirations, and definitely have different opinions. But at the end of the day, they're just human, like everybody else. My name is CK James. Thank you for viewing. Hopefully you'll tune in next week as we have our next week's panelists come on. Thank you again. This has been the Voices of a Black Man. Take care. All right, guys, let me stop recording here.